Have you ever had your tea leaves read? Welcome to another episode of All Things Energy. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dana. We're so happy to have Amy Taylor here. We're going to talk all about tea leaf reading. How about that? And the mystics of it. What a fascinating topic. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. So we understand that you've been doing this for many, many years. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
I've been reading over 30 tea leaves, specifically over 34 years now, and got started in my late teens. I was interested in different forms of divination, and tea leaf reading kind of landed in my lap. Sitting in a Chinese restaurant with my family, and I was pouring tea for everybody because the pot was in front of me, because that's what you're supposed to do when the pot's in front of you. And I was looking at everybody's cups, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That looks like a dog or a car or whatever. Really didn't know much about what I was doing at that point. Did a bunch of research, and this is pre-internet days, right? So did a bunch of research, went to libraries, occult shops, and then the yellow pages. And I ended up finding some readers that was using tea leaf reading as part of their repertoire, went and saw them, got some insight, got some pointers, got the pants scared off of me. And then I ran away to California for a couple of years. And then I came back here, and then I started reading professionally in Toronto, 94, 95.
How interesting. I know I've had my tea leaf done before. I've done a reading before. I've never done it, although I do practice it sometimes. But Heather, I understand that you've actually had one done.
I have. I've had a number of tea leaf readings. I do come from a family of tea leaf readers, and I really wanted to find some answers. I wanted to know if somebody could help guide me. So I would say just over a year ago, I did the old Google search, and that's where I found Amy. And she is located on Ottawa Street in Hamilton, and it's such a fabulous street to go to. So anyway, so I had this.
That's where I know you from. I'm so sorry, Heather. That's where I know you from. I was at the Peppergrass Lane store. I was the reader in there in the Peppergrass Lane, or the Pepper Tree. I don't know. Anyway,
Oh
I'm
my
so
gosh,
sorry.
that's ages ago.
That was like 20 years ago. I've been reading for 20. I've been in the industry for 20 years too. But yeah, absolutely. We were trying to figure out where we knew each other, but that was where
So that must have been like 2009, 2010 era or something like that. Yes, so that makes total sense. Well, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. I knew we had met before. Sorry, Heather. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your thought.
I love this. This is wonderful. So I came into the shop, and Amy shares a shop with another lady. I believe she's a Wiccan. Is that correct?
She's not. She practices a completely different form of spirituality.
Oh, sorry.
She's in the African diaspora. So she practices that. I'm the witch. She's a witch, but in a different way. So
okay, all right, okay.
For lack of a better way of explaining it. So
yeah, and the shop was just amazing, because you also have in your shop a museum.
Yes, and last summer I had to downsize things a bit because the way that the industry has been with COVID, it's been a little tight. So I downsized, and now the museum is part of the reading experience for anybody that comes in, because it's in my office. So you get to actually have kind of a private tour at the same time, but it's a museum that holds, I have over 50 cup and saucer sets that are related to tea leaf reading. I also have historical books. Some of the items that I have are well over 100 years old, but it's like 170-ish items that I have in the museum itself.
Wow. And it was interesting because you have quite a neat, I'm going to call it a ceremony. It's ceremonious in how you conduct this tea leaf reading. And I was just used to, having the tea leaves, sip it out of your teacup type of thing, but it was beautifully done, beautifully orchestrated, Amy.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it was just something that brought calm to me, and just how you conducted yourself. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I would really encourage people to, come and meet you and have a tea leaf reading. And there's so much more to what you're all about. And we really hope to uncover a lot of this in times to come, because I know you do have a lot to share with many. But
yeah, I'm a woman that wears a lot of different hats for certain. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And today, we wanted to talk about the tea leaf reading, because again, that was something that I had experienced with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and everything that you said. And I must say, Dana was a great reader for me too. Her mediumship was just bang on each time that I've gone to Dana, and then you as well with the tea leaf reading. It was so inspirational. It helped me get on back on track, I guess you could say, in making the decisions or the choices that I had. Let's put it that way. And I know it was up to me to make these choices, but you helped expand my thinking and my choices. So yeah, just
absolutely a pleasure. I'm glad that you got so much out of it. I don't know. I'm not the reader for everybody, and I think Dana can actually relate to this, because not everybody's going to resonate with your energy and stuff. But I'm the type of reader that if you want to hear it, I'm going to tell you about it. If it's there in the cup, I can speak to it. As with any process of reading, it's all about what your energy is telling the reader. Right. And, when you're taking a look at interpreting symbols and patterns that are in a cup, it's the same thing. Your energy is what dictates what comes forward in the reading. If you want to hear about something that isn't there in the cup, it can't be talked about. Right. So I've incorporated cards into my reading process as well. And the cards are unique. They're different because they're tea leaf reading related as well. Right. So they're the Lenormand reading system. But I've created, because I'm a rebel, I created my own method with those cards. And the cards that I use, I actually have a deck here. Okay, let's face it, I have a deck with me all the time. Right? It's what we do. But these cards are really unique. They're created by a gentleman out in Australia, and you can see that they are tea related because of the teacups they're in. But what people don't seem to recognize is that the Lenormand system of card reading, it has a direct correlation back to tea and coffee grind reading, because all of the symbols that you see on a traditional Lenormand deck were from something called coffee cards. And that was only really discovered just in the last 10 years, as that's where those illustrations, those images came from. So it all is tied in, it's all connected. It's just like astrology is a part of everything as well. Well, astrology can really be a part of a tea leaf reading too. So it all depends on your perspective and the person that you're going to see, right? So I try to give a full meal deal to people as much as possible. Like I said, you come in, you actually have your reading with me, and you get the tour of the museum. But I'm also, Heather, did I drop the F-bomb in your reading a couple of times?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure
that's how I am, right? So I'm, what you see is what you get. I'm not gonna, I try to behave when I'm out in public, doing events and stuff like that. But when it's me in my office with a client, I tell people straight off the bat, I said, I tell you what you need to hear that may not be comfortable for you, but I also swear like a sailor, and, and I'm proud of that, because that's just me being genuinely me.
Right.
So,
yes. And you did say that too. Sorry to cut you off, Dana, but you did say that in my reading before we started. You gave me, just an introduction of how you're going to conduct yourself and what I could get out of it, a type of idea. And so you're very informative, very, so it was, like I say, a relaxing, to be honest with you, it was very relaxing, because I got to know up front what you were going to say, you know what I mean? Like how you're going to conduct things. So.
And it's instantly comfortable, because you feel like you're with somebody who you're familiar with, because it just is. This is who I am. This is what you're going to get. It's very authentic. So have a seat. Let's see what goes on. And there's no pretension. It's just.
Exactly. And you know
You
what,
just-
though, a good reader is going to do that. A good reader is going to make you feel comfortable instantaneously, you know, like a good reader
Because
is
they're
gonna-
always nervous.
well, and that's the thing. People always are like, they're there because they need to have the reading for whatever purpose. In your case with mediumship, I mean, like most people are wanting to contact their loved ones that have crossed over. And, you know, these are very sensitive situations. These are situations which are opening people up to great healing and growth. Also, it's opening people up to things that maybe they should have been aware of that they haven't been aware of for a long period of time. So
From perspective.
making somebody comfortable is so important. So having that environment where people can come in and feel instantly at ease, it's a win-win situation for everyone. So and that's something that I teach my students as well. I teach tea leaf reading. I've been teaching it now for 22 years.
So it's interesting just to kind of, you know, I tap into everything, but to do a little research about how do you pronounce it? Tessomancy?
Tasseomancy.
Tasseomancy. So I was doing a little research on there and I was listening to this lady and she shows her cup and her little tea leaves. And I wrote in the comments, you're going to get a cat like this because I saw a cat face, just the whole little cat face at the top of the cup. So I assumed that it was either coming or something at that point. I don't know. I just intuitively went with it. I don't read cups, but I definitely saw a cat face.
So that's interesting because tea leaf reading is based off of intuition more than anything else. So people say that you have to have psychic ability. Listen, everybody has psychic ability. You just need to know how to flex the muscle. Okay. So in my opinion, everybody can learn how to do tea leaf reading, but they have to release their inhibitions a little bit. And they also need to be able to be flexible enough in their mindset to be able to see the patterns and shapes and so on, etc. So I say to people very simply, if you can see shapes and patterns in clouds, you can see shapes and patterns in tea leaves.
Is it like pareidolia?
It's very much like that.
Okay.
It is the layman's way of geomancy, essentially, is what it is.
Geomancy.
Right? So it's literally divining with a random object. Right. So, and tea leaf reading has, you know, this is the other thing. You're not going to find a tea leaf reader that's going to do it exactly the same. So that woman that you were looking at on her YouTube channel or whatever she was showing you, she won't be doing it the same way as me. And the woman that, you know, there's other readers that are out there that they're not going to be doing it the same way as me either. And what I try to explain to people is that, especially my students that come in for classes, is that, you know, I'm giving you the method that I created, that I started off with, right? As time goes on, you're going to create your own way of doing it. And that's the thing that blows people's minds, because they don't seem to realize that there isn't one set way. Whereas with all divination, every form of divination, there is a raw set of rules that are attached to it. Like, so the tarot is a perfect example of this. It is the story of the fool's journey through the tarot, right? So there is a story that is defined, that is attached to the tarot, that a good tarot reader should understand before they get out there and start doing readings for people in person. With tea leaf reading, my feeling is that you can go out there and learn to do tea leaf reading any way, shape, or form that you want to do it. But understanding your tools is going to be the important factor that's involved with doing a tea leaf reading. Right. So when I teach people, I teach them about tea, and they get an understanding of tea, and they go through a tasting process with tea and learning about how the leaves change shape and size and so on, etc. So and different types of teas and how they work and some how they don't work. You know what I mean? But I tell people to experiment and play all the time because it's an oral tradition. Even though that we have some books that are over 100 years old that are out there, and one of them specifically is a book that started off in the UK that was written by a Highland seer that is now available. You can find it for free as a PDF online. I have the 2 original books in my museum, but when it comes to that particular book, that is the known canon that everybody is getting their definitions for the symbols from. Right?
You should allow yourself to understand your own symbols, should you not?
Trusting your intuition, what your intuition is telling you is going to give you the greatest, you know, success, I find. So you saw a cat in that woman's cup. Well, okay, so here's my question. based on the personality of that woman that you were listening to, what do you think that that cat actually meant? Well, you felt that this person was going to be getting a new cat. But in some circumstances, and especially in the old canons, the old books that are out there, a cat is not a good omen.
Oh.
I have 3 cats and I feed a colony of cats that lives outside, right? So
That's because you live in
I know
Hamilton.
cats are good. You know what I mean? So it really depends on your perspective. I did an interview back in 2012 for Maclean's magazine. And, they asked me, what does it mean when you see, for example, a lizard in the cup? And I said, well, a lizard isn't going to mean the exact same thing for everybody, right? Just like seeing an anchor, for example. An anchor can mean somebody is really well anchored emotionally. Maybe they're really well anchored in their job, or they're really well anchored in what they're doing, but maybe they're being weighed down by all of that too. Maybe that anchor is weighing them down, keeping them in place where they don't want to be kept in place. Maybe they're feeling that weight, so it really is interpretive.
Well, it's very interesting. Is the teacup itself important, like a certain teacup that you use? And can you do it yourself? Can you do it for yourself?
Absolutely. So you can do a tea leaf reading with any type of cup, really, but I'm very persnickety about that. I like a specific shape of cup, and the cup shape that I like is, pardon the filthiness of this cup, it has a plant in it, is a shape like this.
Oh.
Right. So very well rounded. It's got a very nice sort of bowl shape. See how filthy it is, but it's got a nice shaped bowl in it. And what it is that it gives you a wider area to spread those leaves out in. The other thing about this particular cup is that you can see that the handle is lower than the rim. So you want to have that as well, because you're going to be turning those contents out into the saucer. You don't want it to teeter-totter, right? So it all depends on the cups that you have. You can do it with a mug if you want, but you're not going to get the leaves very high up the edges of the cup, right? If you do it that way. That's why I say, do a teacup and saucer, you'll actually have better luck with it. And yes, this saucer is glued to the teacups.
And you can do it with coffee too, right? Coffee grounds, you can kind of do it the same way.
Absolutely. Turkish coffee is really good for doing it. I've seen a lot of people actually do tasseomancy with espresso foam. Right. So if you look at the espresso foam, you can get all these layers through the cup. So those could actually have a lot of meanings yes, absolutely. You could really do, this type of reading with anything that leaves a sediment in the bottom of a cup. So sometimes wine would have been used many, many years ago as what they would read the dregs of their cups, After a few cups of wine, maybe you are seeing a lot of stuff that's in there, but you know what I mean? Like things along those lines. So it really depends. It depends on what you have available.
And you actually have to have your energy. You need to drink the liquid. You need to be touching the cup, but you couldn't do this remotely. People would definitely have to come and see you.
So for the tea leaf reading, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know other tea leaf readers that will do it remotely, and they're very good. And one that I would recommend is Rissa Miller out of Pennsylvania, because she'll actually take photographs of your cup and then she will draw it out for you. So you actually get this drawing that you get to look at, and she'll point out all the symbols and everything that she's seeing in that cup. I have done remote readings that way, but I prefer to do the cards remotely. It's much easier to connect. And then, of course, then I don't have to give you a whole lesson on how to do a tea leaf reading. You know what I mean? So it's not easy to toss a cup sometimes, right? So
toss a cup.
So that's another word for tea leaf reading. It's called cup tossing. So that's what the Scots called it. Yeah.
Cup tossing. I like it. It'd be the Scots that would come up with that one.
It would be, right? Totally.
So Amy, as a certified tea sommelier professional, yes, with the Tea and Herb Association of Canada, yes, what are some of the environmental and viably uses of tea?
So tea has a huge impact on our environment, and mainly in North America, for example, because the tea is imported. So you have to think about the way that, what's the best way to put this? the amount of travel that tea has to get to here is a ton of gas that is being used to actually, so the amount of fuel that is used to actually get your tea to Canada, for one thing, is really detrimental. The other thing is that people seem to think that, you know, tea leaves only have one use, but in reality, tea leaves actually have more than one use. You can actually compost your tea leaves very easily. A lot of teas, like green teas and white teas, pu'er teas, and oolong teas, can be rebrewed over and over again until there's essentially no flavor. And then at that point, you can mix those leaves in with some baking soda and put it in your fridge, and it'll help absorb odors. You can use your used tea leaves to get the stink out of a smelly carpet. You take your slightly damp black tea leaves or green tea leaves, you sprinkle them around your carpet, you just let it sit there for like, you know, 25 minutes or so, and then vacuum it up. And because leaves actually, tea, traditional tea, like tea from the Camellia sinensis plant, those leaves are all from the same plant. Everything you get from black tea, green tea, white tea, all of those other teas, same plant. But the thing that is interesting about tea, and this is why you see that good tea companies will actually sell you tea that's in a resealable bag, like a really good resealable bag, or in a container, is because tea actually absorbs odors and scents. So you need to keep that in mind for storing your tea. So the best way to store your tea is to store it into a container that is airtight and doesn't have UV light affecting it either, because UV light will actually deplete the flavor profile of your leaves as well. So I have a cabinet that's on the other side of so many people put tea in the cabinet above their stove. And the heat is not a good thing to do that with. And any herbs and spices that you have should be at least, 2 shelves up, so you're not actually dealing with that. But it's all dependent. But it makes an amazing amendment to compost. So if you're drinking just regular black bagged tea, like I do every day, I go through quite a bit of Yorkshire tea. Make sure 2 things. Check with the company and see if they're using environmentally friendly tea bags that can be composted. If not, then tear those bags open and compost the leaves, but you'll still have to throw that bag out. So these are the kind of things to keep in mind when it comes to tea. But the other thing about tea that, environmentally will impact us is that people seem to think that tea is a huge factor in causing issues with our environmental issues. Tea isn't. Tea is a tree. So the tea is not causing any more environmental impact outside of the fact of how it gets to us, because those plants, those shrubs that are actually meant to be 14, 16 foot tall trees, right, even taller in some areas of China, are putting oxygen back into the air. They're taking carbon monoxide out of it, right? So they're still performing this really, really important job. So tea is not negatively affecting the environment, again, outside of, the way that it is actually traveling to us. Most tea plantations try to veer away these days from using any pesticides and herbicides. They will use herbicides if they have a really bad weed infestation, but most plantations or farms that I'm aware of are actually weeding them out by hand. So it all depends on where you're getting it from. This is easily found on the internet. Research it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, fascinating. So what is, if you're doing your own tea leaf, what is the best, most accessible tea that you would try this if you're just trying it for the first time for a newbie?
You know what? Open up a tea bag and use that. I mean, so that's what a lot of traditional tea leaf readers would actually use. They would tear open a tea bag and use that tea that's in those tea bags. The other thing that I wanted to make very clear is that tea that's in tea bags isn't inferior tea. It's actually specifically made for tea bags. It goes through a cut, tear, curl process where the leaves are actually made very, very small. So when boiled water or hot water hits those leaves, you get your flavor profile coming out very quickly. It's a convenience thing. right? So the larger the leaf, the longer you need to steep it. With a black bag of tea, you can steep it for like half a minute and still be able to drink it and get flavor from it, right? So it you know, it's not inferior tea. It's just it's actually processed smaller leaved. So, well, not smaller
Interesting.
leaved. I mean, the leaves are made smaller.
And
Well,
so,
this,
sorry, I'm sorry about that, Dana.
go ahead,
And
Heather.
also, there's other types of teas, and you have quite a selection that you pick to sell in your shop, and even doing selling online as well. And I've bought some, and I've just loved the vanilla tea. Fabulous tea.
Was that
And
the rooibos, the vanilla rooibos that
yes,
you got?
that's the one.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the one that I used for my tea leaf readings as well.
Yeah. Oh, it was lovely. Yeah. So I bought 2 bags from you.
Brilliant.
And another thing is tisanes. Do you do tea leaf reading with tisane? Is that how it
So
is?
rooibos is a tisane,
Okay.
right? So it is essentially considered a herbal tea, but
Oh.
I have used in the past peppermint. That's the other herbal that I've actually used for tea leaf readings. But you know, you can try any kind of tea that you want. I've used all kinds of different teas over the years. There's a monk's blend, which is a black tea with grenadine and vanilla, which is from Germany. And it's absolutely gorgeous, but that's what I used in the very beginning. But the leaves are very large when and some readers like that, right? Like some readers will actually like to have a larger leaf tea in the cup because the leaves themselves are creating their own shapes, right? So it all depends on the person. With me, you know, I blend a lot of teas. You're right. I do bring, I curate the teas that come into the shop. I taste test everything to, you know, make sure that I have the quality that I want and the flavor profiles that I'm looking for. But I also do a lot of blending as well on my own. And I do a lot of small batch blending. Mostly my real passion is the tisanes. I like working with herbal materials and playing with it and the magical attributes to them and so on, etc. But I also I have blended some really, really lovely teas with black tea, white tea, green tea in the past. So
Fantastic. So tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Well, I'm on social media. You can find me through my website at www.taotat.ca. That is the short form for the Art of Tea and Tassiomancy, and my company is called the Art of Tea and Tassiomancy's Mystic Tea Room, and I'm in Hamilton, Ontario.
It's been fantastic. How interesting. I've had such an education today. Did you pull a card there, Heather? We need our
yes,
traditional.
I did. Yes. And actually, I'm just going to say this, that after your tea leaf reading, you suggested that I have the abilities or whatever. I have intuition, you said. And so you should, she said, I can't remember specifically how you said, but you encouraged me to look further into it, Amy. And so anyways, I've gone into the oracle card reading, and I'm just learning about these various abilities, I guess you could say. But anyways, today's card is Dwelling in Truth. I stand in the light of truth. So there we go. It's very well applied to what we were talking about today.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And Amy, just another thing too, because like you said, you wear so many hats. Love you to come back on the show. And I'm fascinated with when you told me about being a hedge witch. That was brilliant. And Dana, I think this would be another great topic just to learn about, you know, it's just amazing how, you know, back in history, what hedge witches did. It was great. Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I'm up for it. How about you, Amy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So we will set that up and we'll let everybody know what another great show on all things energy. Very, very interesting. So I wish everybody a wonderful day, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.